This week, this month, I've decided to give you all some information about elder abuse information and reporting. I was talking to someone this week and this subject came up. So what I want to do is, to me, it's an uncomfortable subject, but it's something that we need to talk about. And you, as an agency owner or an agency nurse, is something that you need to be aware of, because you may run into situations where this applies. I'm going to go over a few areas of elder abuse. I can't hit them all, and they do overlap. So I'm going to go ahead and do what I have prepared today. And the abuse types that I'm going to talk about today are financial, domestic violence, sexual abuse, and we're going to talk about reporting. Those are the areas I've chosen to highlight today. So with financial abuse and exploitation, this is one of the most reported abuses right now, especially with the invention of the internet. And a lot of our older individuals are at home and they learn how to use Facebook. They send emails, learning how to text. All of these are wonderful tools for our elderly population, but there are those who seek to take advantage of them when they're using those just to keep in touch with their grandkids or to gather information. You know, now we use our phones and computers to make doctor's appointments. They communicate with us that way. So many of us are online, and there are people taking advantage of that. So some of the ways that financial fraud and exploitation can take place is there may be someone right in that person's neighborhood or area or in their home that may borrow money from them, and they may not repay that money. Also, these individuals, everybody, if you have an account, you have a debit card or a credit card, they may use those in an unauthorized way, or they may authorize them to use it and they use more than they should. Then there's the big identity theft. For someone to steal their identity and go out and buy cars, houses, just whatever. And it may take a while for that person to be aware that that's going on. And then you all know that there are individuals that will call our elderly population and ask them to transfer money. I myself got a call at one time from a gentleman that said, "I'm calling you because you got a ticket. And if you don't send $125, if you don't wire $125 to me, you're going to be arrested." So it was on a Sunday afternoon. So the first question I asked him is, I said, "Which car was I driving?" And he couldn't tell me which car I was driving. So he didn't expect that. I did have access to more than one car. And so I knew then that it was fraudulent. But if you called an elderly person and they say they have one car, they may not ask that question, and nobody wants to be arrested. You don't want the police showing up at your door. But that was the way that he came at me, and it's happening to elderly people. And you don't have to be that old, but anyone can try to get you to wire money. Also, if any of you have used the money wiring services at Walmart, they really have a lot of disclaimers and alerts for people that are trying to send money. Not too long ago, I heard that there was someone that I know went to the bank to try to send money to an outside source, and the bank would not do it. They called the family. So there's people looking out for you, but we know that this is going on. And as agency owners and trusted individuals in the community, we need to stay on top of this and make sure that we're protecting the elderly. Those that are at risk for financial fraud, they may be isolated, lonely. We know that is very prominent as we age. The family may live in another state, or they're working and we're retired and we're at home. So that's very easy to happen. And then here comes what we do. They're frail with physical or mental disabilities. We see those people on a regular basis. That is our business. So we know we're seeing them. So that population is highly targeted. And then they rely or are dependent on others. That is our population as well. They have no informal supports, such as some individuals maybe they used to attend church or they used to go to the senior center. We know that during COVID, some of those things were shut down for periods and they didn't go. So there was no one they could talk to about these phone calls they were receiving or whatever. And so they don't have anyone to bounce their ideas off of. And then a family member can really be the perpetrator. There is so much drug use and there's a lot of mental health challenges that have escalated since COVID. So there are people in the home that these folks used to trust, or their family members that could be some of the ones that may want to exploit them financially. And then there's a case where a person may receive money, a lump sum payment. There were so many people that passed away during COVID. Some of those people had large insurance policies that transferred to individuals that we see every day. Those individuals may get a lump sum of money from, a death benefit, or they may retire from their job and get a lump sum. They are targets. And most people are so proud of it, they may tell someone that they got that money. So that makes them even more of a target. Then there's domestic violence. This really kind of hurt my heart when I was looking at this. Domestic violence occurs in younger women and older women. We don't expect it to happen to older women, but it does. It doesn't matter their economic status. It just doesn't matter. But sometimes we see people living in a beautiful house and driving a great car, and we think, oh, no, that wouldn't happen to them. We've got to open our minds and just know that there is a possibility. We can't look at people and say they're not a target of domestic violence. Also, keep in mind that men can be targeted as well. And men are very closed-mouthed about this subject when it happens to them. Some things that you may see, it's going to be hard to detect in a man, but just keep your mind open because it can happen to them. And then one of the things that can happen later in life is that people use power and coercive tactics, and they may try to inflict harm on an older adult in some kind of way. They may not even hit the person, but they may have them so afraid by raising their voice or withholding something from them that, just anything could happen to precipitate it. And the main thing and the most hurtful part is this may be inflicted by their partner, family members, former partners, adult children, and look, caregivers. The one thing that we do in home care is we check those individuals that come to work for us, because we don't want our caregivers that we send into the home to be part of this. Something that I always thought about when I was an agency owner was that I made sure that I trusted the people and I checked their backgrounds as I was supposed to. But the one thing I thought about is that a person may have worked in this industry for years and they never did anything wrong. But just remember, you all, there was always a first time for each individual that they did something. So if you do hear something that's going on, don't just say, oh, Jane would never do that. She's been doing this for 25 years. You do not know what has changed in Jane's life that may make her stoop to some other level to do something against someone that she can take advantage of. So just to go over some of the domestic violence warning signs, changes in behavior. Those of you that go into the home every day, your aides, they know their clients. They know how they act. They know what they do every morning. So you know how your client behaves. So you notice a change in behavior. Are they being more fearful, ashamed, withdrawn? Do they have injuries, like they have one bruise that's red, another one that's yellow, in various areas of healing? You'll be able to see that. Then do they have other unexplained or untreated injuries? You see that working with them in home care. And the injuries will a lot of times be in locations that are not caused by an accident. Someone may say, I walked past that table and I bumped my leg. But if the injury is on the upper arm, on the inside of the arm, where someone maybe grabbed them too tight, you'll start to see those things that may just make you more alert to pay attention to what's going on. Then there is Sexual assault. This is really a hard one. You all may see this as well. Sexual assault can be unwanted touching, sexual harassment, threats, degrading, or exhibitionism. That would be someone showing their genitals, a part of their body, to an elderly person, and they really can't do anything about it. So just beware of that. Painful procedures when caring for the genitals or the rectal area. And that would be like maybe an aide or caregiver. They may not be gentle with the person to hurt them, or not do the care as if it's providing care, but do it in a sexual way. This is very subjective. It's very hard to prove, but I just want you all to be aware of it. And those of you, some of you work in home care and in long-term care settings, just know that there are many perpetrators that can be in the long-term care settings. You've got the housekeepers, you've got all of these people that may potentially touch someone in the wrong way. They're going in and out of the room. So just keep that in mind, that that's an area where you really need to watch out. And then some of the risk factors for sexual violence are many that I already mentioned: isolation, cognitive, diminished physical or cognitive capacity, contact with a sexual offender. We have a sexual offender registry here in North Carolina, but most people don't ever look at that. You may want to pull that up sometime and just see. I'm not sure that it has the name on there, but it will tell you if they live within. You can put your address in and it'll tell you where they live. I believe their names are in there. They used to be. So just look at that. But your average elderly person is not going to look at that. They may not know that this man that's now helping to work in my yard and he's running errands for me, he may be a sexual offender. And if there are sexual threats or unwelcome comments, that's a risk. And then there's cases where the perpetrator may be grooming the victim, just trying to befriend them. And as I said before, doing little errands or whatever, and then they may do something against them later. When your aides are in the home or your nurses or whatever, they may be aware of these people. Or if the person is constantly talking about someone, you may want to know who it is or whatever, but just to give you some awareness of what's possible. And then some of the indicators of sexual assault later in life may be infections, pain, bleeding, difficulty walking or sitting. And you know that person, you've been with them and they normally don't have these things. Just keep that in mind. If there's an inappropriate sexual relationship, I do recall when I first started my agency more than 20 years ago, we had contact with someone that allowed a younger man to move into her home in a room. She was renting him a room, and we were very uncomfortable about that. So, and you have your gut feeling as well. So just hang on to that, because your gut is usually correct, and you just be hyper vigilant in situations like that. And then I mentioned before, bruises to the outer arms, the chest, mouth, genitals, the abdomen, pelvis, inside the thighs. All of those, just pay close attention. And bite marks. And then also sometimes when you're talking to your client, they may say, give little indicators like, he or she makes me do bad things. You may want to look into that a little bit further. Get them to clarify it. And then just emotional and psychological, tactics that they may use, such as threats, neglect, not providing the care that the person needs, not giving them sufficient food, not cleaning them, isolating them. And also with that isolation, telling other people that they have a cognitive impairment or that they're mentally ill when they may not be. Therefore, when they start to mention that this happened to me or that happened to me, they're like, oh, well, she's losing her memory. He's got memory issues. Nobody's done anything to him. Be aware that they may be set up for that. And denial or access to spiritual traditions or events. if someone loves to go to church and they were always going and now they don't come anymore, that may be someone that's preventing them from going because it's a support system. And then they may ridicule them about their cultural values. We know we all need to be culturally sensitive. There are certain things that different cultures do. There's the clothes that they wear. All of those things are relevant, and they should not be teased or ridiculed because of that. And then someone needs to mute their mic. And then we can also talk about reporting the abuse. If you are having any type of situations that you think that may be going on with any of your clients, the one thing you need to do is you need to have some very clear and concise documentation. One thing that each of you should have in your agency is you should have some type of a report or incident report where you record unusual situations. One of the things that you probably are used to recording is that the person, if someone falls in your agency, immediately you should get that incident report and document everything about it that you can. So that's one area. So this sexual abuse would be one of those. You get that incident report. If you do not have one, create an incident report for your agency to keep track of the things that are going on in the agency that are exceptions that may affect your insurance or that may make you liable. And so that's where you're going to document. If that aide calls you and says, you know, Miss Jones it's got these bruises and there was one in between her thighs and I just don't know where it came from, then that's when you as the nurse or whomever, you need to grab that incident report and start to document. If there is, if you may want to send your nurse out, or you may want to go out and check it out yourself, because if the aide, the aide's duty or caregiver's duty is to report anything unusual to you. And so if they reported it, you take them at their word, but you want to put your eyes on it, document it, put your eyes on it, and decide if you need to take it any further. And then one of the first things I would do is I would talk to the primary caregiver or any uninvolved family member. Now, if the primary caregiver is the person that you're suspecting, you may want to ask them where the bruise came from or whatever, but you may want to talk to some other family members that are not involved in the situation to get their opinion. And if you can, discuss it with the victim. If they are not cognitively impaired, just try and talk to them when they're alone or away from that perpetrator or suspected perpetrator. Even if a person does have a cognitive impairment, there are some questions you can ask them. They do have moments of lucidity where they will be able to answer you in such a way. You may say, did someone hurt you? And they may go, yeah. Well, where did they hurt you? Kind of like you would do a child. So you may be able to get some information, but document that information verbatim when you're investigating, because you started your documentation up here and you're documenting everything along the way. It may be a situation where you need to contact the primary care physician. We hope that they're already involved if there's any form of abuse going on, especially if it's physical. You may want to let the primary care physician know. And then above all, you are an agency, you have a license, you have nurses who have license in your agencies. You have the duty to report anything that's adverse or that's going wrong with your client that can hurt them. And most of those reports go to the County Department of Social Services. Here in Wake County, they're called Adult Protective Services. We know that there's Child Protective Services, but there is Adult Protective Services also. And in the past, when I reported abuse, it wasn't, they did take my name and my information, but the victims or the perpetrators never knew who reported it. They would say, we have a report here. So from this, you all, as an agency owner, I know you have a lot to do, but when you get one of these, stop what you're doing and document, and pay very close attention to these situations. Because what you don't want is for one of those elderly individuals to end up in a hospital, or God forbid that they're deceased and it happened right there under your nose, and you had an aide going in there every day. Your nurses were going in doing assessments. You do not want that to happen to your agency on your watch. And as I let you all know each time, I am happy to provide this information to you all. But I want you all to know that before you change anything in your agency, any of your policies or whatever, that you go directly to that agency that governs you, and you make sure that it is something that they want you to do, not just based on the information I've given you. I'm happy to do this every month, but I want you to be sure that you don't make any changes until you are sure that your regulators feel that it needs to be made. All right, that's what I had for you all today. I'd like to know, do you have any questions or comments that you'd like to add to what I've covered today?
Hi, Patty.
Hi.
Hi, I have a question. In long-term care, when an incident happens, normally they have an hour to report to the state. Do we have a time frame in home health to report this to Adult Protective Services, like if there is an incident?
I don't know of an exact time frame, but I would say as soon as you find out about it, you start documenting, and depending on the situation, I would at least report it within 24 hours. I would get to Adult Protective Services. I know it's a little different in long-term care, but if I was made aware of something today, because you need to do that research. I don't want you to run off half-cocked. If someone tells you something happened, I don't want you to pick up the phone and start calling APS before you do all of that research. That research may take you 24 hours to talk to a family member, to look into the situation. So I would say make it your standard about 24 hours before you take that forward, because you want all of the information. When you call Adult Protective Services, you want to say, I did this, I saw this, I did that, this was a conversation. You want all of that together. And that may be hard, really hard for you to get together within an hour, but I would say 24 hours is a good standard. And if I hear that there is some other requirement about reporting abuse in less than that, I will let you all know. But I think you'll be okay if you can do it within that time frame.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Okay, I know that this is an uncomfortable subject. I was uncomfortable even as I was putting it together, but I want to be sure that you all know something about all the things that you are responsible for as you operate your agencies. I want you all to be successful and compliant. So we don't want to hear your name on the news that you were involved with a client and you were aware that something went wrong and nothing happened, or once the investigation comes through and you get caught up in that. We want you to be on the forefront. We want you to make sure that everything is happening well with your clients, because that's one of the things we're responsible for. We're responsible for making sure those individuals are safe in their home. All right, so that's all I had today. It's a beautiful day. I hope you all will have a wonderful weekend, and I will post the recording to my YouTube channel. I'll let you all know when it's available. And also, I have a list of all of the departments of social services in the entire state of North Carolina. When I send you the link to the YouTube video, I will send you that list as well. All right, you all take care, and I will notify you all of our next meeting next month, and you all have a good month and also have a good weekend. Thank you all. Bye-bye.